Good morning, everyone. Jim Clark here at the Synchronicity Sanctuary in Central Virginia to share another contemplation with you. And the contemplation that I'm going to share today is potential and possibility. I am what I am not. There is only one. A beautiful contemplation, and one that served me well and continues to serve me well. What this is pointing to, I will share with you in a moment. First, I just want to give a quick review of the process that brings us to contemplations such as this. So when we're young and we're in awe about life and we're taking in everything around us and trying to learn and maturing, we're exposed to all manner of belief systems and ideas. Some we like, some we don't like. But while we are interacting with all this information in our very early years, there is a state that we are in, and all this information is going in to us. We're taking it on, and we're taking it on as if it's coming from an ultimate authority. Our parents, our teachers, our peers, and so forth. And then at age 7 or so, the door closes, and there's all this information that we have taken on that becomes unconscious. We can't directly access it anymore from our thinking mind. And from that point on, life goes through a process where these beliefs and so forth that we have in us are still active, but we are not aware of them as such. And we're still thinking and we're still interacting with more and more information. And of course, there's going to be contradictions, there's going to be differences, and there's going to be an attempt to reconcile what's real and what is not real. So the wonder and the excitement about life begins to be replaced with a contractive process where we're living in a world that simply doesn't agree with the model that we took on when we were very young, a model that we acquired from our parents and teachers and peers, so forth. And we didn't create this model from our own experience. We took this model on, right? So then we tried to adapt to all the opinions and beliefs that we've encountered. And as life changes, which is always changing, we are confronted with an unconscious belief system, an ongoing belief system that's more in our immediate awareness, and the differences between them. And so gradually this process brings us into conflict, our internal conflict. What's real and what is not real? What can I believe and how can I know what life is really? And so I recall when I was brought to a point in my own life where my desire to know, my desire to understand life, to understand my life even, grew to the point where I was catapulted, so to speak, into an awakening experience. And in the moment of that experience, in the moment where there was total absorption into the oneness of everything, it was so powerful and so beautiful and so blissful that none of those contradictions, none of the questions, none of the conflicts were there. They simply didn't have any relevance to that experience, which was much stronger than any other experience that I had before in my life. And this is key to what I'm leading up to here. So there was this experience. I was disembodied for a while and brought into a state where there was no body. I was beyond manifestation, but I was still present. There was still a me witnessing and experiencing this totality of whatever. And then gradually I went back into my body, and I was left right where I was at the beginning of this experience, except that I was vibrating at a level that I'd never known before. I was extremely saturated with a blissful energy. And of course, I celebrated this. It was just an automatic response to this experience. And as I went on from that moment, I started to contemplate what it was. Because even in that strong of an experience, that awakening, there was still a me on one hand, and the experience that came to me on the other. There was still this subtle separation between myself, who was undergoing this experience, and the experience itself. So the journey began, and at that point in time, I remember shortly thereafter, a voice in my head simply came to me, and it wasn't like a normal thought. It was more like something just suddenly came into my thought process, but it had an energy to it that was different. And it simply said, you need to go all the way back. In other words, another journey had begun, born out of that experience. It was like a rebirth in a sense, because your understanding of your world is totally shattered. Whatever you thought was real before is no longer real. And you're trying to figure out what is real. The same conundrum that you had before, but at a very different level of the game. And so that's when I started to meditate. I started to develop a more holistic lifestyle with diet and exercise and doing yoga and studying and practicing meditation and whatnot in an effort to recapture that experience. That was really the driving force. When you experience that immersion in blissful energy, it's only normal. You're going to want it again. You want to grab onto that and hold it. Because that was the ultimate answer to everything for me. If I could maintain that state of being, there would be no need for anything else ever. The ultimate fulfillment. And so I went through the processes that many people go through once they've had an awakening experience. They're now launched into a new level of seeking, a new level of trying to be complete, trying to regain that blissfulness that they had in their awakening experience. And that is our driving force. And then eventually, through many, many years of meditation and trying to live a healthy lifestyle to support the meditation, and disappointments and challenges that I met along the way, because I really didn't know. I'd had no teacher at that point, not a visible teacher anyway. So there was no one to explain much of anything, and there was no internet, and there was only books to read, which I did. I devoured books on spirituality and meditation at that time, but they were mostly from India or someplace in the Far East, and much of the examples that they used, the terminology, was from a culture that I did not fully understand. So I still came out with some sense of being clear on what that experience was on the one hand, but it was still more conceptual. It wasn't something that I could validate experientially. It wasn't something that I had established in a way that I could understand. And gradually, in my searches, I came across what is the synchronicity meditation, where I could have someone to speak to and someone to guide me. In other words, that was my first real connection with a teacher. And it came to me in a way that I could accept. In fact, I was very excited about it. And when I tried the synchronicity meditation, and the technology that's built into the soundtracks of synchronicity, the level of my meditation went increased, and it was so much easier and so much better and so much more consistent. And so I was able to call synchronicity up from where I lived at the time and check in with a mentor and ask questions and get some answers and guidance. And gradually, as my understanding became more and more clear about the process that I was actually experiencing, my connection with synchronicity kept drawing me closer and closer, and then I eventually came here to my very first program, and in that program I met my teacher. And when I met my teacher in person, my experience with my teacher was so powerful and so overwhelming that all my resistance to spiritual authority, let's call it that, just dissipated immediately, because the experience far outweighed whatever fears or beliefs or doubts I might have had about such a person. And that's the ultimate sign of an authentic teacher, is that their presence says it all. And still there is this subtle, undefined separation. You're still someone seeking something. Okay? So there's the potential and possibility. There is the I am, and there is the I am not. You're an ego. You're still identified with your ego. You're still going to a teacher. You're going to someone, some authority outside of yourself, or so you think, for answers and to try to come to some finalization over the process of becoming spiritual, totally spiritual. And so over the years of being here and going through the processes, which were extremely powerful and very challenging oftentimes, and using contemplations such as the one that I'm sharing now, I developed a greater and greater understanding experientially of what this process is. And one of the themes that was always maintained is that consciousness is orchestrating the show. So, in truth, what I have come to accept, because it just makes sense experientially to me, is that what we call the creation game, where consciousness creates the manifest worlds in order for itself to experience itself, because without the relative field of experience, where polarities exist and experience is possible, there is no experience. We don't know what lies beyond that, because this is where we are right now, and we're coming from the polarized field of experience. The positive, the negative, the right, the wrong, the up, the down, the cold, the hot, and on and on and on. And there's the ego, and then there is the non-ego. There is the ultimate spiritual self, the soul, whatever you want to call it. And so this diversification of consciousness in manifest reality, playing the role of seeker, playing the role of teacher, playing whatever role you're playing, it is all the same one consciousness. It's not something different. And so what I have come to understand now is that, yes, you have an awakening. You grow up, you're totally ignorant of everything spiritual. You take on the belief systems, and the process is human. You end up with a part of yourself that's unconscious but still active, so you react to life based on the information that you take in at a young age, and then you begin to question yourself. You question why the world is so different than the one that you somehow believe in, and this tension that builds up between what you think and what you believe and the world that you see around you gradually leads you to question yourself and question life. And as that increases and the momentum of that questioning increases, eventually it triggers a shift to its opposite polarity, the positive polarity. And this is where awakening experience happens. And something opens you up, and boom, all of a sudden you're operating at a whole new level. You still have questions, but your experience of yourself as energy, as something other than physical, of physical and mental and emotional being, is happening. And this is a whole new element that you're experiencing in your life. And as you experience this in your life, if you go and develop more of this experience through meditation, holistic lifestyle, if you become dedicated to the growth and the maintenance of this presence that you begin to experience within yourself, because it brings with it a wholeness, the hint of wholeness, and the possibility of fulfillment. If you do this and you continue to do this until you establish constancy in the experience of your own presence, the consciousness that is orchestrating the show is becoming more and more present in you as you. The difference, that subtle separation between yourself, human, and the experience, spiritual, begins to close. And you slowly realize and begin to integrate everything around you, everything outside of your physical self, as the same consciousness that you are. And this is where wholeness and enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, becomes more and more complete, because now you're closing the gap on the experience of separation, and you're beginning to realize that you are and everything is that same consciousness, irregardless of how it shows up, irregardless of whether you think it might be wrong or right or good or bad. These are just names that are part of the process of the illusion of separation. And they begin to drop away because your experience is ongoing and constant. And as you keep experiencing the return of these thought patterns that were once so strong in you and part of your own illusion of separation, they dissipate in power. They cannot command you anymore. You don't become so reactive to it because you're experiencing your own fulfillment at some level, and that experience outweighs the power of illusion. So the potential and the possibility is growing as an experience within you. The I am and the I am not are beginning to come together in such a way that there is only one. And as that experience grows, your own oneness grows, and the world around you becomes more and more a singular energy form that is the same consciousness as all and everything. So that's what I wanted to share with you this Monday morning, and I hope you find it useful in your process and in finding the answers that you need to find within yourself. So that's it for today, but I'll be back again next Monday to share another contemplation with you. I enjoy doing this, and I enjoy seeing your comments and questions. And anyway, until then, I bid you adieu till next Monday morning. Thank you.